When we speak of their legal status, we have to mention several questions. First of all, their status as residents, their status as citizens, the law that applies to them, and their social rights. Let us start with the first question. The Palestinians, the Arab Palestinians of East Jerusalem, as you know, they have been joined to Jerusalem in 1967 after the Six-Day War, when Israel decided that Israeli law, jurisdiction and administration will apply to East Jerusalem. They have received the status of permanent residents because the idea was that Israel did not want to force them to take Israeli citizenship. But they can apply for naturalization, which means they can apply to get the Israeli citizenship upon their own request. A few thousand have asked for this naturalization, but not the majority. And the majority of them, from the point of view of citizenship, still hold the Jordanian passport, and they don't have an Israeli passport. So first of all, they are permanent resident. Now, permanent resident has all the rights of a person who lives in Israel, which means they can vote for the municipality, they can work wherever they like, they can go wherever they like, and they can live wherever they like. The only question is, can they lose this status? And the idea is that if a permanent resident settles permanently in another country, then he loses his status of permanent resident of Jerusalem. Because the idea is you cannot be a permanent resident in two places. With regard to citizenship, I mentioned already that it was not imposed upon them, but they can ask for it by a procedure of naturalization. With regard to the law that applies to the Palestinians in East Jerusalem, it's an interesting question because formally, officially, the Israeli law applies to the whole of East Jerusalem. But practically, in many matters, the Israeli law is not enforced on them in East Jerusalem. And they don't have to follow all the rules of the Israeli legislation. There are several judgments on this matter. The last question was the social rights. The social rights, of course, this is the question which is the most important for the Palestinian Arabs. Every Israeli permanent resident has the right to social security and to state medical service. And this is very important for those people, and this is why they are so intent on keeping their Israeli permanent resident rights. It's interesting, by the way, even an Israeli Jew who has nothing to do with East Jerusalem, who leaves the country even for a few years, he loses his right to these social rights. He gets them back when he comes home and settles again in the country. So these rights, the social rights, belong to every person who is a permanent resident in Israel.